The Love Affair event is on at Whole Foods Market with deals on delicious desires through February 14th. The floral department's in full bloom, so look for savings on double dozen bunches of roses. In the meat and seafood departments, save on animal welfare certified New York strip steaks and sustainable wild-caught lobster tails to make the night sizzle. Gifts from the wellness and beauty department are always a nice touch. And you have to grab those chocolate-dipped strawberries. Make Whole Foods Market your Valentine's Day destination.
Today on CityCast DC, if you did dry January like I did, you might be ready for a nice cocktail. I know I am. Luckily, DC is a great bar city. And Ramon Santra, creator of the super popular account Barred in DC that covers DC bar news and happenings, is here to help us determine some of DC's most underrated bars. Cheers! Today's Tuesday, February 13th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. All right, so I am super excited to talk to you. This is sort of like a little bit of a fangirl moment, getting to meet somebody who runs one of my favorite accounts in DC. You probably hear that all the time.
Yeah, appreciate it. I always love meeting fans and people that engage with me. So it's great to, I really appreciate being on. Thanks a lot.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. So I want to get into this, the different kinds of underrated bars in the city. Julie and I have had this conversation before about restaurants, but
so many times.
It's like one of my favorite conversations is underrated spots. So you were talking about kind of neighborhood spots that are chill, kind of. What are some underrated neighborhoody spots that folks should know about?
Well, it's funny. I did post to my Twitter followers the other night because I thought it was a great question and I wanted to kind of get their thoughts. A lot of the spots I got were just like that, neighborhood spots that if you don't really live in the neighborhood, you might not even heard of. But the one that came to mind, which wasn't even mentioned, was this place called Bar Yvonne in Georgetown. It's part of Chez Billy Sud, which is a French restaurant bistro. So that one side of the sort of two townhouses is kind of the restaurant, kind of a nice French restaurant. But on the other side, it's a wine bar that really, I mean, it feels like you're in like an old part of France. It's really awesome. But you don't hear, I don't think a lot of people have been there. And it is sort of a neighborhoody feel, even though it's kind of a wine bar. And I definitely think it's probably the best bar in Georgetown.
How have we never heard of this, though, Bridget? What are we doing?
That's what I was going to say, because I love Chez Billy, but I didn't know there was a sister bar right next door. How did I not know this?
Yeah, and I just found out that they serve the same menu at Chez Billy at the wine bar. So it's a really cool spot. So that's definitely, like, I would say, the most underrated spot in DC overall, and particularly a neighborhoody spot. Otherwise, like neighborhood bars, I think is really particular. Like if you live in a neighborhood, they're really for the people in the neighborhood. So I live on the east side of Capitol Hill, and there's a couple of neighborhood spots that if you live in other parts of the city, you might not have been to or ever heard of. One is, I think, a little more well known. It's called Trustees. It's a dive bar near me, and it's been there about, I think, maybe 16 or 17 years. It was the only bar in the neighborhood for years. It's definitely a neighborhood spot. You go in, everybody looks at you when you walk in to see if you're one of the regulars. It's kind of funny. And in the second floor, they shoehorned a school bus, like the side of a school bus, into it. And it's just kind of a wild space. And it's kind of, they serve craft beers by the can upstairs, whereas downstairs is more like you get, you got 3 taps of like Budweiser, Miller Lite, really standard stuff. But the rails are $5 or $6. They have a flat top right behind the bar where they cook like half smokes and burgers. It's a fun spot that I think a lot of people don't know about. The other one is Tunnicliffs is another bar in my neighborhood. It's called, the people in the neighborhood will call it Tunnies. It's more of a bar and grill kind of spot, more of a neighborhood bar right across from Eastern Market, the market itself. So during the day, you'll get like tourists and other folks, but at night, it's just like a towny scene of, I would say, like the average age of folks anytime I'm there after like 10 is 40 or above. And it's just, I went there when the Nats, when they won the World Series, like I think I went for the first round of the playoffs, and there was a game against the LA Dodgers. And the game was I think it started like 10 p.m. And I was there at 1 a.m. watching the end of the game. We went to the extra innings, and I was talking to this woman who's, I think she's just 78 years old. And she is at the bar at
Love
1
that for
a.m.
her.
watching it. So it's just like, there's always these regulars. It serves food late. I think it's one of the few places on Capitol Hill that I think the kitchen's open till maybe 1 or 2 on weekends and real late on weekdays. So it's a great spot.
Ramon, you're really giving me the gems because I have not heard of any of these, and I am very excited to go. And Julia, I don't spend enough time in your neck of the woods, Woodley Park. What are your favorite neighborhoody spots that are underrated?
Ooh, that's tough. I feel like a lot of them are like correctly rated. I will say the place that I go to when I just need like a good beer and just like a good hangout is the Duke's on Connecticut Avenue. I feel like a lot of people don't go there because they think of the Duke's in like downtown, all that kind of stuff. But because it's more removed, it's almost always not as crowded. You can get your pint, you can get your proper burger, you can chill. If you're looking for English pub vibes and just like a very good beer and a burger, that's my like go-to. And it's like reasonably priced. So
they have one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best burgers in DC. And when you go to their website, the very top of the website is like consistently rated the best burger in DC. They're very proud of that burger, and it is very good.
They've trademarked proper burger. If you look at the menu, there's a TM symbol. It's
as
funny.
They should.
Yeah, it's a great burger. That's a great spot to go to. It's right across from the zoo. So it's the only bar there. So it's a great spot.
Wait, so Bridget, we've dished on our favorite underrated neighborhood joints. What are some of yours if you had to pick?
So I feel similarly to you, Julia. I don't know. So I live in Columbia Heights. I don't know that I have anything that's like properly underrated. I feel like anything I say, people will be like, obviously that. I love Lyman's. That's kind of a good, standard. It's right by my place, so I'm there a lot. They really stepped up their patio vibe. Like, it used to be nothing special, but now they decorate it. They've got heaters. It's like quite nice. I'm not saying that like it's this secret place. Like no one's ever heard of Lyman's. I'm sure everybody listening has been to Lyman's or at least heard of it. I'm saying it's sort of underrated in my heart. Another one, it's not really in my neighborhood, but Mount Pleasant. So most folks who live in Mount Pleasant know Sun Cinema, but you might not know that you can go there when they're not screening a film, that they have quite a lovely list of cocktails and they have good DJs and just like you could sort of treat it as a bar. So Sun Cinema, maybe not underrated in the traditional sense, but their cocktails and their bar service, I believe to be underrated.
Yeah. And I definitely, Suns, I went there first time in May and it was awesome. Like it's just a really cool vibe. And I think Mount Pleasant is one of the most fun neighborhoods that people don't really go out as much into. And it's just like, it's just a really cool neighborhood. And because it's one strip, you got Raven Grill, which is actually, I think they share kind of an ownership with Lyman's. And Lyman's was actually something I was going to bring up because that was one of the places a lot of people mentioned as underrated. And so, Bridget, I think, you were on the same line. And I kind of thought, well, Lyman's is kind of a spot people talk about, but maybe you're, underrated is, it doesn't necessarily mean under the radar, right? So like it is, I can see that definitely being right. And Julia, like, I know you're Woodley Park, but right across the bridge in Addis Morgan, a lot of folks were talking about Grand Duchess, which is a really cool little cozy kind of neighborhood bar with good cocktails. I've only been there maybe once or twice a couple years ago, so I couldn't really put it on my list, but that was also mentioned a bunch of times by folks, and I definitely want to check it out again.
Yeah. Cool.
There's a new play at Gala Theater in Columbia Heights, and this one sounds really interesting. Cristina Garcia's gripping play, The Palacios Sisters, is a Latinx adaptation of Chekhov's Three Sisters, and it captures the vibrant chaos of 1985 Miami. Three sisters and their brother, who recently arrived from Havana, navigate Miami's treacherous landscape filled with drug wars and rampant violence. It's a story of challenged family bonds, resilience, and longing. Check out the world premiere in Spanish with English surtitles, also known as supertitles, at Gala Theater this month. The show is running through February 25th. For more information and tickets, visit galatheater.org. Once again, that's galatheater.org.
The Love Affair event is on at Whole Foods Market with deals on delicious desires through February 14th. The floral department's in full bloom, So look for savings on double dozen bunches of roses. In the meat and seafood departments, save on animal welfare certified New York strip steaks and sustainable wild-caught lobster tails to make the night sizzle. Gifts from the wellness and beauty department are always a nice touch. And you have to grab those chocolate-dipped strawberries. Make Whole Foods Market your Valentine's Day destination.
This being DC, I feel like there's a lot of places that get like a lot of buzz and are kind of hard to get into. Are there some spots like that that you think kind of maybe do live up to the hype? Like maybe they were really buzzy at one point, now the buzz has died down and they really are worth it.
Yeah, I think like Jack Rose used to in Asmorgan. When it opened, I mean, over 10 years ago, there was always lines to get upstairs. They have a kind of open air covered rooftop. You know, they have the bourbon list, their whiskeys. I think they have the most bottles in the Western Hemisphere, if they've said before. I know they sold off some, but they have an amazing list. And, you know, I don't know if it's on the radar of folks to go out there as much anymore, but when I've been, it's still like upstairs has like a really solid happy hour that goes a little later. They have TVs and they have different like areas to kind of perch upstairs. And I think they have really good food. So that's one spot that I think is still great. Copycat on my side of town is this cocktail bar with also really good food like dumplings and stuff like that. It's really cozy. It's tiny upstairs. You go upstairs and used to be people you have to wait on the stairs to get like a seat late night. I think it's still pretty crowded, but you don't hear about it as much anymore. And it's still just really great cocktails and really great food that's in the kitchens open late. And another spot, Church Key, which is you know, the beer bar on 14th Street in Logan Circle. I remember going when it opened for the first time, and it was just a scene because there had been kind of bars that serve beer, but nothing quite like that. And I think it still has like a huge beer list, and it's just a really kind of fun second floor spot. So those are a few spots that I still kind of out there and are great.
I remember when Church Key opened, it was a huge deal. I was in grad school. This was forever ago. And I remember this was the first wave of the craft beer scene being a thing in DC. And like, I was in grad school. I was hanging around all these like grizzled MFA poet fiction writer types who really like to drink a lot of beer. And that was where they would go. It was a big deal. You just took me back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so another favorite question of mine. What about kind of very DC old school places that have just kept doing what they're doing forever and it works?
So one spot that actually got the most mentions by the folks on Twitter, I think definitely fit. This place called Recessions, which is this karaoke, basement bar in a nondescript hotel downtown, like in the middle of the business district. It has kind of neon red letters on the door, and you just go in, you go down the stairs, and it's just kind of down this kind of weird hallway. And it's just like this hilarious spot. And it's been doing that for years. When I was in law school and living in DC in the summers in like 2005 and 2006, I went there, and then, I went there in the last couple of years. It's basically the same spot. There's karaoke most nights of the week. They have like a pool table, they have darts, just kind of this funny crowd of, sometimes there's folks in, business suits or, business casual on right after happy hour. They have these King Kong beers, they call, and they're just 28-ounce beers.
Amazing.
And they're like, they have a happy hour. I think they're not, it's pretty cheap, $8 or $9.
Why have I not gone there?
Yeah, I used to work in an office that was like right on that block. And so whenever we would have events, we would do our like after party there. I almost don't want to discuss it because this is when I was in my early 20s. God only knows what I was like there. Like those karaoke nights would get wild. I have very distinct, though fuzzy memories of some of those karaoke nights.
It's a spot. And I think a lot of people are excited. They were kind of like, this could be a place. It didn't make the pandemic, but they're there. Their staff has an Instagram account just for the staff. So that is fun. So that's one spot. It's kind of a divey thing that's going on for years. Stan's is another spot. It's around K Street in Vermont, kind of like 15th. It's also a basement bar. It's another bar that's probably been around for 3 decades. They are one of the few spots in DC. There might be one other, Fox and Hounds and I guess Dan's Cafe, that will, if you order a cocktail, if you order like a mixed drink, they're going to pour you the entire glass of liquor and then give you a mixer and you make it yourself. So it's one of those spots. And they have some of the best wings in DC, and they'll give you the whole wing, not just like the wingettes. It's primarily a black clientele, but it's sort of like it can be mixed, and it's downtown. So it's really a cool kind of like place, old school spot that I think a lot of people don't really know about, but it's right in the middle of downtown. And another spot, it's newer, but it just gives you kind of a, like, this is an old school kind of vibe. Actually kind of reminds me of like an LA dive bar. Jackie Lee's is this bar up in Brightwood Park. And just because it's kind of further north, I think a lot of people probably haven't been there, but it's just a really awesome bar that, I think more people should know about.
Yes, shout out to Nick and Amanda. They are great. We love that spot. They also have great ribs and great food. Like it's a good spot. I recommend. Julia, who do you think has been doing their thing in DC forever and they keep on doing that thing because that thing is a winner?
Jesus. I feel like I'm not old enough to have this conversation. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of places that are still around from like being around.
Our executive producer Bianca is saying Red Derby.
I've never been to Red Derby.
That's where I met my partner.
I know. I'm bad. I've never been to Red Derby.
You definitely should go there.
I know. It's funny when you mentioned Jack Rose. I was going to say like Jack Rose is a place similar to McClellan's Retreat that like they do their thing and they do it really well. And if you love brown liquor, like those are the two places to go. And like going to Kentucky Derby Day at Jack Rose is wild.
Yeah.
It's also like one of the only bars that's like still around from like when I was in college, which sounds weird because it's like 10 years ago. But for me, that's just like old, quote unquote, you know?
Yeah, Shenanigans did not make this.
Yeah, Shenanigans and Johnny Pistolas don't count, guys. They don't count.
Shipping can make or break a sale, so optimize how you ship your orders with ShipStation. They make it easy to automate and manage orders no matter how big your business grows. And they might even be able to help reduce shipping and warehouse costs. So optimize and keep up your momentum for growth with ShipStation. Sign up for your free 60-day trial now at ShipStation.com and use the code POD. That's ShipStation.com with the code POD.
What do you think is the best place? Like, where in DC would you recommend I head out if I'm really excited to have a drink?
Well, that's always hard to answer because everybody has different tastes. My favorite bar is All Souls in Shaw. We had our 10-year anniversary party back in March because they opened actually the same year I created a bar in DC. It's just a great little neighborhood corner cocktail bar with pretty cheap cocktails. Everything's, I think, like $13 or less. They have a couple of solid drafts. It's always great. The setup is kind of a corner curved bar, so I'm always meeting new people there. It's just a great place to chat with friends. There's tables too, and if it's warm, it's outdoor seating. So that's probably my favorite spot to go to if I haven't been out. And that was one of the first places I went to once pandemic bars kind of restarted opening. So if you haven't been there, I'd suggest that.
Julia, where would you send me?
So I'm a fancy cocktail girl. I would probably send you to Jane Jane. I love how they break out. Each alcohol has their own little page. They always come up with new stuff during each month, different flavors, different alcohols. Also, they have a cute little like stitching knitting thing near the bathrooms. And it's always like a very funny quote. And the vibe is very similar to, I think, a lot of the vibes in downtown DC generally, which is like a little bit dark, a touch too loud, but like you can actually hear yourself think, which is the kind of bar that I like. So
yeah, it's an intimate little spot. It's tiny in there. I should warn folks if you haven't been. There's not a lot of space.
Oh yeah,
but it's a cool spot.
Yeah, I've only been there once because I've heard how hard it is to go to. But I did go. I went by myself. It was easy. I'm not really a sitting at the bar kind of guy, so there's not that much standing space there, but it's a really cool space, and the drinks I have are awesome. If you haven't been out to Jane Jane, I definitely recommend it.
So my question for you then is block for block, is there like one area of the city that you think is just like the best for bars in the city, if you have to pick one?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, I actually did a poll about this 5 or 6 years ago where I did do the blocks. And I think having Red Derby and Lyman's right next to each other makes it kind of just two powerhouse bars right next to each other. Kind of complementary. They're not, exactly the same. I think that's probably up there. There's a strip of a block on H Street, which has the Pug, which is just another really cool dive bar that I could have mentioned as underrated. Queen Vic, which is like a British pub. Granville Moors, which the Queen Vic owners is like a Belgian beer. Like it feels like you're in a Belgian like monk's office kind of place. They're all on the 1200 block of H Street Northeast. I think those are the two ones that kind of stand out in my mind. But strip wise, obviously Addis Morgan has like a lot of bars, and there's a lot of kind of old spots there like Dan's Cafe. But there's definitely a flex there. So if you're telling someone from out of town like where do you want to go, that there's going to be a bar open, maybe there. But I'm thinking like Upper Columbia Heights and East Side H Street. You got two great blocks of bars.
As somebody who lives in Columbia Heights, I'm happy to hear our neighborhood getting a shout out. I used to live on 11th Street, right next door to a bar that's no longer there called Meridian Pint. And this was 10 years ago I lived there. And I'll never forget that strip of 11th Street where you had Meridian Pint, there was a barbecue place called Kangaroo Boxing Club, which is also now shut, Wonderland. There was a whole subreddit in the New York Times that called it DC's hip strip. And we were so excited. I was like, oh my God, my block is being called a hip by the New York Times.
Yeah, well, that's a cool strip too. With the new spot there, Macon and Thirsty Crow. It's pretty good. That's the 11th Street is a cool block too.
And then a few blocks up, you have two newer spots. Johnny's is a really cool spot. If you want to watch a sports game of some kind, I feel like that'd be a good place to watch. Right next door, you have Buddy's. They're both newer bars, but really nice additions to the neighborhood, I think.
Oh yeah, and I think they're both Black-owned spots, so that's another great, to have kind of a mix. Like I said, bars are kind of segregated in DC, but it's good to have a bar that kind of like allows everybody to feel comfortable at.
Absolutely. Ramon, Julia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I cannot wait to go get a drink now. I'll meet you at the bar.
Same, Bridget.
Yeah, same here. See you guys. Cheers.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, share it with your favorite barfly. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then. I will say I almost want to edit out what you said about the wine bar next to Chez Billy because, I don't want people to go. I want to go and have it to myself.
Yeah, I know. And that's one of those places like my friends, my wife, sometimes I'll post something. I'm like, hey, make sure we go there first before you tweet about it or like something like that.